Welcome back to What's the Theory, episode 2, and we have an interesting debate that Sarah's put together. So we're going to jump right into it with no further delay. What are we talking about today, Sarah?
Claude, AI SEO.
So the theory is,
Yeah.
can Claude run your SEO?
I mean, my answer is straight away no, but we'll go through that. What do you think?
I think I've always had like a long-standing opinion on this, but I think the general consensus is Claude is an accessible tool just like ChatGPT and Gemini, and the
Yeah.
relatively low barriers to entries and low cost, and they're quite easy to learn. There's lots of different playbooks out there that you can download, just like with creating a website with AI.
Yeah.
And my opinion is that if there are 1,000 businesses, for instance, that sell hair gel or hair products for both men and women, and those 1,000 businesses start using Claude for their SEO, who are you competing with then? Because the AI is just going to find the best average of everything, and everyone's going to have a similar, if not the same, strategy. So my
Yeah.
opinion is that yes, maybe these tools can be helpful in some instances for research, or maybe a small business actually that has no idea where to start and doesn't really have the budget, but running your
Yeah.
SEO, no.
Interesting take. Okay. Well, I went down this rabbit hole to give some context because I had a chat with an old friend this past week. Shout out to Mihao if you're listening. And he asked me about Claude because he's saying loads of people talking about how you need to do the tools skills lab, whatever it's called. And I went on it and I was like, there's 14 different essentially areas that they're promoting, which is like full site audit, tech SEO, content schema, all sorts of stuff. But a lot of it is geared towards AI. And Michael's like, well, is it really genuinely that important? Like, should everybody be doing it? Because everyone's been talking about it on LinkedIn, and I've seen loads of LinkedIn influencers, and you can't, if you're listening, you can't see it. I'm doing quotation marks because I went down the rabbit hole with those people as well. And turns out half of them are just fake AI profiles, but we'll get onto that later on. And everyone's promoting Claude, like fire your SEO team and start doing Claude. And I'm pretty sure we talked about it last week. Brighton had a whole tech SEO or something like that section about it. And it was one of the people were talking about how they put stuff into Claude to do their tech SEO audits for them, and it was spitting out loads of rubbish.
Yeah, I
And
did
I
see
was like,
that. Yeah.
yeah. There's something like that. You mentioned it last week. And the more I went into this whole topic, reading about this Claude Skills Lab and all of it, I think the more angry I got because on the surface, when you go to Claude's website and look at Claude SEO, a lot of the info seems like it makes sense. So, for example, how to plan your SEO strategy, how to do EEAT content, all of that stuff. All of the information's on a surface correct,
Mm.
but the prompts and the answers the prompts spit out are not always correct, or are just like you said, repeat, like rinse and repeat. Everybody's giving it the same answer, and it's a bit frightening because it genuinely, when you go on a website, it's a really well put together landing page. There's lots of stuff on it. On the surface, it looks like, hey, actually, I could use this to do all my SEO. I don't need to learn tech SEO. I don't need to know what a canonical is. I'm just going to use this, and I'm going to use a bunch of prompts and do it for me, and it's going to tell me what to do with it. But is it effective? And will you know how to implement? Half the people will be linked off to GitHub. Most people, when they go to GitHub, they don't even know what to read and what they're looking at because it is like Reddit on crack. So I just thought it was an interesting topic. I don't know if you've seen as much of it as I have, but in my case, it's all over LinkedIn. Everyone's saying it's gone from everyone needs to do geo, hire a geo agency or AEO, whatever you want to call it, to I've replaced everybody with Claude and it's crap.
I mean, yeah, I'm seeing it. I think more so on Instagram. More so people like advertising the fact that like what Claude can do and its capabilities and like how-to guides. And
Okay.
there is a very clear playbook of comment this for access to this exclusive workflow or playbook, so you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
replicate what I do. I've seen this
yeah.
with websites as well, like design wise and other bits where you've got these absolutely beautiful and amazing websites that have been created using Claude apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And all these people are selling these courses, and it's the kind of it's the same snake oil when a nepo baby
Yeah.
gets a Lamborghini and a decent house, and then they start flaunting wealth and being like, oh, I've got this course, that is get rich quick, and it's just some bullshit they threw together in a
Yeah.
PDF and a 10-minute meeting, and it's just designed to, essentially scam people who are desperate for solutions. And I
Yeah.
think that's where the market is heading. It's heading in a desperate direction, if I'm honest, because we've got to take a step back sometimes and realize that everything that is worth getting in life and in business is hard,
Hmm.
and it will
Hmm.
always be hard because everybody else wants it. And when that's the reality, humans naturally go, I don't want to wait, and I don't want to work hard, and I want to do it quickly. And so they look for quick solutions, and those quick solutions that are affordable and accessible are now things like Claude and ChatGPT for advice or execution. But the
Yeah.
problem is always remain the same with solutions like that. It's going to be the same strategy as everyone else. It's going to be
Mm.
the best of an average, which isn't really going to get you rankings. And I think for bigger companies or maybe even medium-sized businesses that have fired their SEO agency for, Claude or hired a Claude agency at £500 a month, I think they're going to find themselves in a position where it's going to be very hard to claw back from the damage that
Yeah.
that does to your website. And
Hmm.
like I say, everyone is now upskilling themselves on how to use AI and how to
Hmm.
adapt to it. And I just think we're heading towards a place where everything's going to start merging and looking the same, and competition is probably actually for people like us, it's going to get easier and easier because
Yeah.
there's going to be less people who are experts. There's going to be more people who are outsourcing themselves recklessly to these programs. And there's going to be more need for specialist support for people who
Yeah.
can actually get results. But, like I said, to end on the point, I think it can definitely be helpful for a beginner, someone with no budget. If you're selling t-shirts or something,
Yeah.
why not? I guess you've got nothing to lose, but as with
Well, this
anything, it's
So I
just
guess so my question, so I'll respond to that with, so you see someone who doesn't have a budget, right? Based on what I've read and some of the kind of research around it. If you don't have a budget, say you're saying, okay, I'm not hiring an SEO team, I'm just going to do all of this stuff on my own, right? I have a small, like you said, small t-shirt business. I don't need an agency. You only get a certain amount of tokens that you can
mm,
use for free, right? And the website audit, even if it's a small website, can eat up to 20, between 25 to 35% of your tokens just on that alone, right? So you're saying, okay, well, that's 35% of my tokens gone because I needed to do a website audit because I don't know tech SEO. So it spits out this audit. 35% of my tokens are gone. Now I needed to tell me what to do with this stuff because I don't know tech SEO. That's another 35% of your tokens gone. And then I needed to do all the markup. I needed to do the content because I don't know how to write. And you find yourself actually, I am going to have to start paying for the slightly higher version because I need more tokens. And then you do all this stuff. You don't know how GA4 works. You don't know how Search Console works. You have no idea if it's actually doing anything. So you're going to have to start adding all of these other bits and pieces to start making it work. And then that's more tokens gone. So you end up just buying things for the sake of saving yourself some money. When realistically, and I like everyone rags on about how Ahrefs is expensive, and it is if you're properly doing loads of stuff. If you're single, I have my one website, you probably would be better off and it would be cheaper to get yourself an account on Ahrefs who also does full website audits. And if you pay for an extra, it has like a little add-on you can pay for that is not expensive, surprisingly for Ahrefs. You pay on for this add-on and it helps you fix all the tech SEO stuff right there in Ahrefs. So if you don't know how to do it in WordPress or you don't know how to do it in Shopify, you can just do it there. And it's like, that's reputable. It's not AI. It does it for you. And it has years and years of experience in it versus Claude that's open source. You still have to know basic coding because just doing prompts in Claude doesn't fix it for you. So actually, doesn't save you any money because you'd still have to pay for the tokens. You'd still have to probably pay for some dev help if you have no clue how GitHub or any of it works. And it really, is it actually a cost saving exercise at that point?
that's a very good point. When I when all of this was coming out, and I think Claude specifically, I went to I asked myself the question, like, can I build a website for this easy, because that's all I see online.
Yeah.
And I went on it and I tried to build something. I very quickly ran out of tokens, because
Mm.
the thing is, like most AIs, I think everyone's on the same level as this. It hallucinates a lot. So you're like, no, do this, and then you try to explain it clearly, and then it doesn't do it, and then it does something
Yeah.
different, and then you got to correct it, and that does use up a lot of tokens as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got a
And
good point.
if you think about it, like it also isn't able to do everything. So it isn't able to, it can only do standard HTML files. It really struggles with JavaScript or like updated JavaScript files, which is basically what most websites are built on.
Mm,
So at that point, you might as well get Screaming Frog, which is I think 200 to something quid a year. So it's just a one-off purchase and you can use it the whole year. And that crawls everything for you. You can do, JavaScript rendering. You don't need Claude to use up tokens. And then you find out it can't actually crawl half of the pages. So it's like, it has a lot of limitations that people aren't aware of. Like when you do local SEO, it gets stuck after 25 locations because, like you said, it starts getting hallucinations. It doesn't
yeah.
actually know what it's doing. So if you've got a business that has many locations, if you're above 20 locations, it's going to start hallucinating. It doesn't know what it's doing. So again, why as a business, whether you're a small business, wouldn't it be better to just pay for some tools that actually know what they're doing, even if it's a one-off purchase, even if it's a Ahrefs, I'm pretty sure the single website one is not that expensive, or Screaming Frog, which can do a lot of stuff for tech SEO, and then Google your way through the rest of it. Like it makes a lot more sense to do it. And then if you're a big business, I think that's where you and I see quite a lot of this, where you've got really big companies who are trying to save and cut corners where they can on things that they think are stupid, if I'm being completely honest. And they'll be like, well, we don't need this SEO agency. We can just do this ourselves. Fran down the road, Fran in HR can do this with Claude. And then it's like you have this person who's going to start doing this. Then they're going to have to buy tokens, like you said, because you run out really quickly. They can't do half the things. And then if you're a big company and you can't even do all the locations, you can't render JavaScript correctly, what are you doing? And then don't get me started on the fact that the biggest seller on Claude, if you go through their website, and I genuinely recommend everybody goes through this, every single landing page only talks about citations and about LLMs. It doesn't actually say you're going to rank on Bing or Google, anything like that.
Mm,
All of it talks about LLMs. And in our last blog post that we wrote recently, didn't we talk about the numbers? It was very clear that you still have like 80% traffic is still Google. You've got 10% in Bing. And then ChatGPT, all of those things have still only 3% of traffic. So you've fired your SEO agency so that you don't have to do all of this. You're spending money on tokens that you can actually spend on reputable tools, and then you find out that you're optimizing maybe, and it's because it's a big maybe, for the 3%. So again, what's the point?
the cost will increase as well, and
Mm,
this is a wild prediction from me, but there is currently a massive bubble,
yeah.
and I've actually I actually challenged a couple of experts on this. I know, shout out to Oliver Yonchev. I know, me and him get along really well, and he's very supportive of AI, as many other people are. And I have nothing against it personally, but I think you approach these things cautiously, and you always be a little bit pessimistic in some ways. But there is a cycle at the moment where Nvidia are selling graphics cards to OpenAI and other AI companies that need high graphic processing, and Crucial is selling RAM to all of these companies. But then OpenAI is investing loads of money into Nvidia, and Nvidia is investing loads of money into OpenAI, and it's this money bubble just going round like this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's no net new money apart from when users pay for it. Now, there has been trillions of dollars been spent on the race to create the best AI and win.
Yeah.
And the bill will come. It will be like COVID,
Yeah.
the eat out to help out. It seems great at the time. It's like, ooh, it's a discount, it's quite cheap. But eventually, when investors ask for the money back, the price will triple. But I think they're trying to
Yeah.
get people to become accustomed to it.
Yeah. And I'm not saying you can't use it.
Yeah.
There's merit in using it for speeding things up efficiency. Like that's a huge thing. You can use it to I don't know, proofread your content if you don't want to pay for Grammarly. Use it for that. You can use it to help you create outlines if you have no clue where to start with your content. Use it for that. That's fine. But to write AI slop, because that is what it is, because you don't want to hire a copywriter that actually can do content, to use it to do your tech SEO because it's difficult, you don't want to learn it, which by the way, it isn't that difficult. You just need to learn it. Or you don't want to hire an agency to do it or a person to do it. Like it just comes a point where at what point is the cost cutting exercise worth it? Because further down the line, your business is going to suffer. You're not putting the investment in. And I think what I've seen that's really scary, and I think you're right on this whole AI bubble. As I said before, I had a bit of a deep dive and I went down LinkedIn route and had a look at every single post that mentions Claude.
Yeah.
And I was like, let me see what people are saying. And the amount of people, and I say people loosely because I found that actually some of them were fake
The
LinkedIn
agents.
people. Yeah. No, there's one guy that he gets, and I kid you not, he gets like 300, if not more, 500 comments on every single post. He has thousands of likes, he has loads of shares, right? And I was like, okay, who's this guy? He seems like some sort of AI guru. I go on his profile. First thing that strikes me, that profile image doesn't look real. I was like, okay, well, maybe he photoshopped it. Like maybe he's trying to, take the wrinkles off his face. I don't know. And then I see that if you go on his experience, he hasn't worked anywhere except for this company that he's consistently promoting, this AI, workflow will do everything for you with AI company. And on his profile, it says he's worked there for more than 25 years. And I was like, interesting, because I know AI has been around for a long time, not enough to tell me that you've had a company for 25 years that's been working on it. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll go on the company page. Founded in 2023, which makes no sense if he's worked there for 25 years, right? So I was like, okay, well, I'll go on the website. Not only does it not rank for anything, it's constantly selling. Like it's just selling low. It's clearly like bots consistently going, buy this, buy this, buy this. The reviews on the website from supposed, companies they've worked with, they all look like AI photos and not real actual testimonials. And this guy gets hundreds of thousands of engagement on his profile, and all he's doing is going on and on and on and on about how he has the ultimate SEO team with Claude. Replace your team with my SEO team. He's written prompts that, that can do, you've got a persona. So he keeps banging on about how you can write prompts that create people, and that these people are like, you can build a tech SEO person in Claude. You can build a content marketer in Claude. You can build a salesperson in Claude, and you can create personas for them and they will do work for you. And I bet you loads of people are buying into it. Is so much engagement on LinkedIn. I don't even know how. And it's not a real person. It's not a real person, and he's selling this. So who's behind it? Like genuinely, who's behind it? Because it makes no sense.
Yeah, it's the same with social media content as well. There's a lot of pages that have been created recently that do automated content generation. So these are like active agents that will look at trends on social media. They'll look at memes, things like that, and they'll create videos from scratch, like something stupid like a pug skydiving. I laugh at that stuff. It's so dumb, but it's like I know what it is. And so there are a lot of agents who are AI agents. God, it's like the Matrix.
Yeah.
Who are setting themselves up, and it's a money making farm. And the problem that's going to present on the internet is that trust signals are going to be hard, really difficult, more than ever, to prove, because like you said, there are people who can automate and fake reviews. There are people who can write content at scale. You can have someone on LinkedIn who's an AI bot that uses LinkedIn and posts content daily. The same with Instagram and other pages. So brands are going to have to do a lot more work to prove that they're, not fake and they're real and that their content is authentic.
Yeah.
And what I will say, and this is probably going on a bit of a side point, I don't know if you saw the graduation speeches the ex-CEO of Google did.
Oh, yeah.
And there was another person as well. I forget the name of her. But there was at university anyway. America, how, they graduate and they all do the wonderful speeches, and they have a big celebrity. I think Steve Jobs did a speech at a university once. But anyway, this ex-Google guy who's worth billions, and this other woman who was speaking was talking about you know, the power of AI, and every time the word AI was mentioned, all of the university students were booing like mad. They were like
Really?
having none of it. And that's really interesting to me, that the newer generation, especially educated, are rejecting this idea. And I think it's because,
Mm.
you know, it's very obvious that they've spent $60,000 on tuition fees and now they can't get a job.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a real issue. Like, there's all these skills that people have learned, and they're being supposedly like taken and replaced with AI, but it isn't even replacing it well. Like, I think if this AI worked really, really well, and it was genuinely actually much better, then it's a valid thing. I get it. Like, I could see why, but we're nowhere near that. We're still like 10 years away from it being an actual threat, in my opinion. And I think seeing it now, there's, like I said, fake LinkedIn profiles. You've got all this AI slop on websites, and you've got Lily Ray and Daniel Foley Carter talking about it. They constantly go on about how actually they've been monitoring websites who have been bragging about using AI, or who have success stories on there where they've said, well, we've used Claude, for example, to do all the SEO, and what a great success story. But they've been monitoring them on Ahrefs, Screaming Frog, Moz, all these other tools. I think Dan's got his own tool that they've built. And as they've been monitoring these websites, they all went up, they peaked the minute all this work started, and then they all dropped down, all of them. And I was feeling Petsy did the same thing, found a few of these AI gurus or whatever they might be. There's one guy, I won't name names, but everybody will know who I say when he said every post he does, he's like, I ranked my video #1 on Google in 19 hours using AI. Comment yes below to see my tools. And like, he does this constantly, the comment yes below. And he uses the same graphs for everything. They all look exactly the same. If you actually look at all his posts on his timeline in a line, every single graph looks exactly the same. They're clearly fake. And none of his websites, because I went on his website to see who his clients were, none of his clients rank in Google. They all have tanked in the last 5 months.
Because
So it's like
the real thing is selling his courses, you know? He's selling the dream.
$79 a month to be part of his AI boardroom. I checked.
Well, let's get down to some of I mean, there's some points that I want to talk on about
Mm.
kind of just busting this myth and, you know, proving the theory that you can't actually use Claude for a proper SEO strategy.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I want to talk about is, well, we know that Claude primarily writes content, right? It does content
Yeah.
at scale, which in itself isn't a genuine way to get rankings, because Google
No.
and other search engines are penalizing thousands of low quality AI
Yeah.
generated guest
Yeah.
posts or
Yeah.
pages without proper human editing. But the
Hmm.
main thing that I want to talk about is EEAT, and that's
Yeah.
something that it's on the one of the top of the priority list of, you know, what you need to do, especially if you're working in a your money your life industry or for a your money your life business, to have a human expert who's actually giving advice on different topics that are trustworthy and that links back to trustworthy reviews and things.
Hmm.
So how would Claude do EEAT?
Well, it would do it the same way that it does everything else at the minute, which is create a fake person. I think and isn't that the talk that got in a ton of trouble last year at Brighton, where
Yeah.
she was saying you can create a fake expert to make an author profile on your website and put all these like posts and whatever that have been written by AI underneath the title or the author of this fake expert. And I think she used like a medical expert, which is the biggest no-no I've ever heard. I wasn't even there and I heard about it. It was that bad. And I think what Claude is essentially doing is creating these audience profiles and these personas that work for you to do these things. And that was one of the, so on their website, I think I've got it here somewhere. On their website, they have a whole landing page that is EAT and AI citation readiness. That's what they've called it. And essentially, it's trying to say that it's following the EAT framework that was updated in September 2025, which, by the way, is when all these websites started tanking because of AI content. It was that Google update that tanked all of them in September. And it's essentially trying to say that it assesses how ready your content is for citation by AI search platforms like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Google AI. And I was like, okay, so you're still not talking about Google. You're not talking about Google. You're not talking about Bing. You're just talking about how you're going to use EAT to make you rank in that 3% that we talked about before. And basically, all it's focusing on, from what I understood from the website, is things like, have you got keywords and can you stuff more of them? And it literally says in here things like natural densities between 1 to 3%. So if content is, whereas, you know, my stance on this, and I'm always very vocal about this. If you've done a really well-researched blog post or landing page and you've written it with your human brain and your brain cells, you don't need to worry about density, because if it's long enough and if it's researched enough, you will naturally hide the keywords in there. Whereas if this is saying between 1 to 3%, I know for a fact, if you ask it to write a blog post, it will literally do an algo where it will think to itself, okay, I need to put at least 3% of this specific keyword in there. Let me throw it around the text. And that isn't natural, is it? So it's like, it says things like detecting and flagging keyword stuffing pattern. You're not doing any of that because you're literally guilty of it. You just said so yourself. And then it says making sure the first 100 words have the primary keyword in the title and in the first
Come
100
on.
words. It's like, my Lord, like, you just know for a fact. And it has things in here like average sentence length, average paragraph length, which 2 to 4 sentences. What a tiny paragraph is that? You can have just tiny little chunky paragraphs. It's just stupid. And then it has things like content freshness checks. What does that even mean? What does that mean? It's just reading all of this. And then it has obviously things in here like internal linking, 3 to 5 relevant keywords per 1,000 words. Fine. I'll give you that. I agree. But what links? What links are you saying? Because if you're going to be linking from Reddit, that's not exactly something that
No.
works for EAT. So I just don't think it works. I don't think it works. And I've seen far too many websites complaining about it recently. There's actually one guy, and I need to find him on LinkedIn. There's one guy who actually admitted to using Claude and getting rid of people who did his SEO and
No.
reply. He admitted to it, and he actually flat out said that it was a mistake and that it's been awful since he's done it. It's the only person I've seen be truthful on LinkedIn and admit that it doesn't work.
That's insane. Yeah. And
Yeah.
the whole like faking profiles as well. That
Mm.
if anyone's ever listening and thinking about doing that, don't. That is the thing is you've got to understand that Reddit and Google and other platforms that rely on social cohesion and people staying on the page are not going to tolerate people being flooded with shit. And
Yeah.
and so things might work to a certain extent, or it might not work at all, right? But
Yeah.
it's not gonna be long lasting, even if it does. And I think that's the reality check, that in theory it can do certain things, but it can't get the results that that people manually, humans, can, because these platforms like Google and Reddit require human input that is
Mm.
beyond what SEO, AI can comprehend in terms of human intelligence and emotions and feelings and trends and questions and things like that. So it's insane to me that you would even flirt with the idea of replacing people with it entirely.
Yeah.
That's another issue. But
Yeah.
I'll hit you with this bombshell, right?
Okay. Go.
The creators of Claude is Anthropic, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I saw that
I
they
know what you're gonna
posted
say. I know exactly what you're gonna
they
say.
posted a job for an SEO
Yep.
lead in New
Yes, they did.
York for 300K a year. I
Yes, they
wonder,
did.
if the tool is so good for SEO, why don't they just use that and save 300K?
Well, you tell me. I mean, I think somebody was trying, there was an argument about this on LinkedIn, and somebody was trying to explain. And I was like, are you like on their payroll or something? Because they were trying to basically say that they have to hire someone who works in SEO because this person is the one that is making sure that Claude Skills Lab follows all the SEO things. And I was like, okay, so you need to pay someone 300,000 to do that. When if you read the job description, it very clearly says that it's to optimize the Anthropic website. It's not
Yeah.
just to make sure that the Claude Skills Lab is correct by SEO standards. So it was just, like you said, why are we why are we hiring this person if you've got this whole skills lab? Anybody could do it. Your own AI can do it. I mean, we know for a fact Anthropic is a big fat lie. It's such a money making machine at the minute. There's so many regulations and privacy issues with Anthropic on itself. You know, if anybody, I would be careful with downloading, for example, the ChatGPT and the Claude and all the other ones
Mm,
desktop apps, because they found a way to get around your, especially on MacBooks, your privacy settings, and they can actually take your data without your knowledge and use it for their own models. So there's a lot of things that they're doing at the minute that's really dark and sinister, actually. But everyone's too busy arguing about whether they should use the skills lab to actually notice what's happening before their own eyes.
yeah. And we've always got to remain skeptical over what
Yeah.
technology companies will try and tell you and sell you, because the reality is they're just trying to make money. And if they're hiring their own SEOs, real people, I think
Mm,
that should tell us at least that the technology is very limited in scope of what it can do. And
yeah.
there is always going to be a need for some human input and creativity to actually differentiate an SEO strategy to another businesses. And we see
Mm,
this all the time, like for the past 15 years that I've worked in this industry, that when you pick up a new client or you work for a brand or a business, there are like 50 other companies that are also trying to do what you're trying to do, and they're all trying to do the same thing. They want to make as much money as possible, they want to get market share, they want to rank number one, they want to be in all the advertisements, they want digital PR campaigns going out. So you're competing with a lot of people unless you work in a really niche market with no one in it, which in that case is very rare. But the point is, and it goes back to the start, is if everyone is using the same tools to have the same output of content, output of EEAT, output of code, output of technical SEO, there is going to be no, it's basically you're competing against yourself in many different ways, but
yeah,
then all it takes is someone like us to create a bespoke SEO strategy and literally wipe the floor with all the 50 other people doing Claude strategies.
absolutely. Well, there you go. That's my tinfoil hat conspiracy this week is Claude's just, use it for research, use it for outlines, use it to maybe double check your work if you want to. Don't use it to
Yeah.
replace your SEO strategist or whoever. You need actual humans to do some work.
Yeah, I think the theory of can Claude run your SEO is well and truly busted, and
Yeah,
you absolutely can't. And like Sarah said, maybe edge cases for doing research and things like that. But if you want to really compete, then you need real people, like Anthropic
exactly.
themselves. They
Yeah. Be
hire real people.
Anthropic. Be like Anthropic. Hire people.
No, that's cool. But if anyone wants to suggest any theories that you want us to take a look into and explore on the podcast, then please do let us know. If you're watching on YouTube, then do comment. If you're listening on Spotify or other platforms, send me and Sarah a message on LinkedIn. We're on there all the time, and we will definitely look into it. Sarah did this giant document for this episode.
It'll
She
be
actually
it'll
did,
be a blog post. It will
yeah.
be. Yeah. If you're not a listener and you're a reader, we'll have a readable version.
It was very extensive, and what we try and do is just look at things like honestly. And I think some people might say it sounds negative, but what like I said, trust is really hard to find today, and what we need to do is take an honest look at what's going on around us, and we'll do that deep dive, and we'll be honest. If it's good, it's good. If it's terrible, we'll say.